Hello and welcome to the NFL Week 7 Survivor Pool Guide brought to you by Pool Genius. My name is Steven Andress, joined each and every week by the lead analyst over at Pool Genius, Jason Lisk. If you find these videos helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. Thank you to everybody that's been doing it in recent weeks, getting us over 500 likes. Let's get up to 600 likes this week. We really appreciate it. It really helps us get this content out to people who haven't seen it yet. Obviously, hopefully not the people you're trying to win your pool against, but we would really appreciate it just to let us know that this is a helpful piece of content for you. Hit the subscribe button as well. Let us know in the comments who you are picking this week in NFL Survivor Week 7. In this episode, we will look back at Week 6. We will look forward to strategy the rest of the year with a lot of these pools getting wiped out at this point. And we will also look at the biggest favorites, whether to save them or whether it's time to burn some of those big favorites as well. We have one team this week that's more than a 10-point favorite in week number 7. So, Jason, my first question to you as we look back at week 6, really only the Eagles were a big favorite that lost and knocked people out about 10% of pools. Circa Survivors down to 25% of entries remaining. I'm in a pool with only about 8,000 left out of the original 100,000. When do you start lowering the weight you put on game theory and picking teams to save others for future value? And at what point are you just saying, hey, I don't care about popularity. I've gotten far enough at this point. I just want to survive and get to the end?
Yeah, I think it depends on every year's different, and every season, every path is different, and depending on your rules, like how many picks do you got to make? How many people are still alive? Even with 8,000, I mean, you're probably looking at, there's almost no way that's going to be like a pool that ends with a solo champ before week
Sure.
18. And so on that one, you're still looking to go the distance. And some you may readjust your outlook. I will say that this year's is kind of different in some respects. Like, who are the best teams? I think we've had this talk before, and it shows up in the power ratings. I think it's easier to identify the teams you're going to be picking against than the teams you're going to be riding. So I'm not sure there's now that we're here 6 weeks in, I'm not sure there's the best teams tend to have tough schedules. Like the Chiefs have a really tough schedule still, the Lions. And so I'm not sure there's a single team that's like, I have to hold them for sure. I think you just got to play your entry, what you've used, and know how many picks you got to use. You obviously want to at some point fire those teams, so you don't need to be so risky that you never get to them. And so I think it's just like figuring out where that is.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to the angle of the Tennessee Titans, the worst team in the league to this point, firing their coach. We're going to talk about that angle and what it's been like for other teams in the past. We are going to talk about the only double-digit favorite with the Kansas City Chiefs, but we're going to start our Week 7 handicap with the 5 most popular teams in NFL Survivor pools according to Pool Genius projections. And let's start with number 5. It is the Denver Broncos, close to a touchdown favorite against the New York Giants at home. The Broncos coming back from an international game against the Jets where the offense looked pitiful. The Giants coming off that huge Thursday night win, really the signature win of the Brian Daboll era. Pool Genius is projecting the Broncos to be about 6% of entries in most pools going into week number 7. And we'll talk about this one a little bit. I have some concerns with the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix in this offense. I'm not sure it'll matter against the New York Giants, but we're going to get into that analysis in a little bit. But if you go with the Broncos, you know that the popularity isn't sky high at only 6%. Jason, number 4.
Yeah, number 4, we've got a team that just had some popularity last week in a division matchup and draws another one this week. And it's our Thursday night game, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. We're projecting Pittsburgh at around 7% popularity. This is the, I believe, 3rd straight week we've had a Thursday night game that is one of the most popular, the 5 most popular Survivor picks for that week. It has not gone well for the favorites in the primetime games recently. They've been on quite the run for the dogs, including last night, the Monday nights, doubleheader in week 6, where both favorites lost. We also had Eagles lose last week. We had the Rams the week before. So Thursday, do you want to go on the Steelers early in the week? They're going to be an option.
Number 3, the Chicago Bears return home and are a 5-point favorite against the New Orleans Saints. Pool Genius projecting 12% popularity for the Chicago Bears. Just one man's opinion here, Jason, but I kind of have both of these teams around the same tier. And I was only interested from an against the spread perspective of maybe betting on the Saints in this game. I think there's some smoke and mirrors with the Chicago Bears and the wins they've been getting recently. And I think I might want to consider not using the Chicago Bears in Survivor this week. I'll go into more of those details as we get down to the bigger handicap. But as we stand now, the Bears projected to be the third most popular team in Survivor pools for week 7 at 12%.
Yeah, and a couple weeks ago, we might have thought they'd have been even more popular. The Saints have looked a little better, and the Titans have continued to struggle. Some other teams have risen up. So this is a spot where I think the Bears could have been more steamed up had they been like a -7, but they aren't. So number 2 in our list, we're going to go with a team going against that team that just fired their coach. A revenge game for the coach of the Patriots. Mike Vrabel, the Patriots at the Titans, a road game, laying 7 on a team with a new interim head coach. And the Tennessee Titans just fired Brian Callahan on Monday. And we are projecting, this is a bit of a projection, right? Early numbers are closer to 20%. I'm projecting it's going to end up closer to 24. I think you're going to see people kind of gravitate toward New England as the week goes on. And so I'm projecting 24% for New England in this game as the second most popular pick of the week, which brings us to number 1.
The number 1 most popular team in NFL Survivor pools for week 7, as projected by Pool Genius, is the only team that is a double-digit favorite as we record here Tuesday afternoon for week 7. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, a 12-point favorite against the Las Vegas Raiders. Pool Genius projecting 41% ownership for the Kansas City Chiefs. It makes sense why. Even in a win, the Raiders did not look great against the Tennessee Titans. The Chiefs have gotten their offense back to top 5 in the advanced metrics by EPA and success rate, all without Rashee Rice for the first 6 weeks of the season. And here comes their number 1 wide receiver back into the fold for week number 7. We know that the losses from the Kansas City Chiefs as well have been a little fluky, a little coin flippy. Perhaps variance goes the other way and they have a better record. So the underlying metrics look strong for Kansas City. They're obviously the biggest favorite of the week, but that's the conundrum in NFL Survivor pools. Do you want to eat 41% popularity or pocket the Chiefs potentially down the road if you can survive this week? And Jason, that's where we're going to start our week 7 Survivor pool handicap, is with the only double-digit favorite, the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's go ahead and pull up the season view from the data grid that you can find for all Pool Genius subscribers. If you have not subscribed to Pool Genius yet, there is a link down in the description with a free 3-day trial that you can take advantage of. Again, we want to give context to everybody watching this video. We record this video on Tuesday afternoons. These pick projections evolve as more data comes in to Jason and his team. It could look different by the end of the week when you have to get ready to lock in your Survivor pick, but it gives you the whole week to kind of figure out if it's going to go up in value, down in value as we go along here. But we have to start with Kansas City as the double-digit favorite. I really don't see much of a concern of them losing this game, to be honest with you. Even if you want to try and punch holes in this Chiefs defense, Jason, it's not like the Raiders offense have looked efficient in any aspect for weeks now. With Geno Smith turning the ball over, struggling to move the ball really against the Titans last week as well. So this becomes game theory to me, not about whether the Chiefs are in danger of losing. What's the first thing that stands out to you in terms of them being extremely popular this week and also potentially with the rest of the season future value?
With the Chiefs, I think it depends on where you're at in your pool. I like them a lot in pools that are probably not even going to make it to, say, too deep past Thanksgiving. And that's because if you look at their schedule, really they have future value, but it's really in the final month of the season. And so if we pull up this win odds, like once you're past this week, then you're talking like the Titans, the Broncos at home in a really tough week 17, and then a week 18 spot against the Raiders again. When given how they started, they're probably going to be playing for something. I mean, I would be surprised if the Chiefs have locked up something by then. I have a feeling they're going to be in a key game by then. And so for me, it comes down to like, how deep is your pool? How far is it going? I'm probably firing them in my small pools. And the one where I'm just down to 8. And by the way, 3 went on Philly last week and tried to sneak them through and lost. So I was happy to see that number on Thursday when it kicked off. I have a feeling some will go Patriots. There'll be maybe a Steelers or a Bears. And so I feel like even if I'm half the pot there, I like being on the Chiefs in that situation, and I'm probably going to do that in the short term. Now, if it's a multi-pick where 16 and 17 are in play, maybe I hold them and reject the popular pick. But I think they're the better play than I want to play heads up against New England, I think, this week. Even if both have some popularity, even if I'm slightly on the more popular side, I'm willing to do that. So I like the Chiefs as the play because the Patriots actually have what I would call near-term future value. Like they come up a lot. They have such a soft schedule in the middle of the season where I think you'll find a spot to play them anytime over the next 5 weeks. I think you can play them against the Browns. You can play them against the Jets. You got them in week 12, against the Bengals. So I think all those spots, who knows where that Atlanta game, I doubt that's playable, but I do think there's spots to play the Patriots. And so I'm willing to play heads up with the Chiefs in my pools that are, let's say, under 100 entries.
Yeah, let's get to the second tier of favorites now that we're talking about the Patriots as well. And you wrote an outstanding article about teams playing other teams who have just fired their head coach, that first game with an interim head coach. Before we get into that, do me a favor. Let's show the weekly view here and pull it up. Let's sort it by the Pool Genius win probabilities. And after the Chiefs, you're going to see those New England Patriots against the Tennessee Titans and their new interim head coach, Mike McCoy. You also see the Denver Broncos at home against Jackson Dart and the New York Giants, the new Rookie of the Year favorite in Jackson Dart, with Egbuka going on the shelf possibly for a couple of weeks. Green Bay as well on the road against Arizona. And that's really that tier of teams between 6.5 and 7-point favorites. So kind of break it down for me here, because, for the people who talk about narratives and spots and teams coming off of firing their head coach, it does sound narrative-y. It sounds kind of like, hullabaloo, but the data reflects some very interesting information. And frankly, I didn't believe in this a ton until Jeff freaking Saturday comes off the street for the Indianapolis Colts from the ESPN studios and leads them to a win. And I don't know who came up with the term, the dead cat bounce. I think it might have been Drew Dinsick or somebody else. If it wasn't, I apologize. But this dead cat bounce with going from Brian Callahan was a complete zero as a head coach, including in-game decisions. If Jeff Saturday can win a game off the street as an interim head coach, we have to at least consider the possibility that the Titans can too. So, Jason, tell me what your research found in this article that you did this week, and we, of course, will put the link down in the description for anybody that wants to read it.
Yeah, we'll put a link down low, and you'll be able to read that. It looked at all of the interim coach situations that have popped up since 2010. There have only been 33 before this one, since 2010. It happens a couple times a year. We get a firing on average. And it looked at how those teams did in the first game after they fired their coach. The crazy thing, so that they were 20 and 13 against the spread. They were 17 and 16 straight up, meaning teams with an interim coach have a winning record since 2010, and that's despite the vast majority of 25 of them being the underdog in the game they went off at. So they have been if you had just blindly bet interim coach teams over the last 15 years, you would have made a substantial profit. Now, the question is, sample size, 33, is it meaningful? That I think is for you to decide on an individual basis. I have all of the games listed there. It has the weeks, the numbers, the spread, the money line that you can look at. I think there's an argument like the ones late in the year didn't perform as well. Those were closer to 500, but the ones in the first like half of the season to the first 3 months did really well, meaning the team that fired their coach played well. And so I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But, I mean, if we think the coach is part of the problem, this creates a variable, right? It's kinda like week 1. We talk in week 1, like, there's more uncertainty in week 1. We see that in the data. That's why there's fewer teams favored by more than a touchdown. We just don't know how good teams are. Well, I think we also don't know exactly how much disentanglement or how much the coach is responsible for that environment and how different the team might play with a different leadership. In this case, I would suggest at least that a guy who was 4-19 against the spread probably isn't a great coach. And there's at least the potential that him being out of the mix is a positive for Tennessee. Now, will that be realized in week 1? I don't know. My guess is Tennessee plays a little better over the rest of the year, whether we see that in week 1, because you can't, quite frankly, can't do much worse than 4-19 against the spread because you're repeatedly underachieving expectations. Like, that was one of my things about the Raiders last week is I was getting Callahan. Well, now he's off the board. This to me is just more of a variable spot, right? I think the Patriots should win. I think the Patriots have the Vrabel revenge factor going back to Tennessee that certainly he's going to want to win. He's going to want to put it on this team. But what will happen? I don't know. I think there's just more uncertainty now. What's an interim offensive coordinator or Mike McCoy going to do from a play calling perspective that people haven't seen on tape yet, right? There's just all sorts of things that could pop up, and it just creates more uncertainty around the game, would be how I would view it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going back to just my roster talent priors coming into the year, I like the defense coming in. I like the offensive line additions that they made. I liked Cam Ward well enough as a prospect coming in if he was going to get some help from a defense. So it definitely concerns me. I just checked again, we're recording Tuesday, got a ways to go here, but there's some increased wind and a small chance of rain in the forecast in Nashville, which could hurt the Patriots considering they are way above expectation in terms of how much they're passing the ball, and not being a very efficient running team as well. So you throw any kind of weather elements into this passing game, it might make it less efficient than what we've seen. And then all the research you found as well with the interim head coach in his first game, for sure. I mean, the instances since 2010 where the first time with an interim coach was week 9 or before, the team with the interim coach won 7 of 11 times. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. So only
including that
one
Jeff
of
Saturday
the
one, right? Saturday, I had picks on the Raiders. I got burned by that one, right? Because that was a spot you were trying to sneak the Raiders through because you're like, the Colts are terrible.
I remember doing a show saying if Jeff Saturday beats me, then I tip my cap. And I mean, but that's just the latest of a long line of crazy interim coach scenarios that we had a hard time believing. But on this show, Jason, we're always going to be rooted in the data more so than personal opinions. And this, I mean, people, go click the article down in the description. It is eye-popping what these teams have done in that first game. So only of those 11 times before from week 9 or prior, only 2 of those teams were favorites. So for 7 of 11 of them to win outright is just wild. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm probably just have enough concern with also third straight road game for the Patriots. That concerns me as well. So if it's not the Patriots, Jason, then we got to go down to the next couple of teams here in this tier and talk about, let's start with the Denver Broncos. Now, a lot of people have probably already used the Broncos to this point. There have been a lot of spots to use them, but for those that still have them available, I got to tell you, man, like, I know they're back at home, but I know the international games are wonky. I'm back to being very concerned about Bo Nix in this passing offense. The Jets came into that game as a terrible defense. They were bad in every way, shape, or form on offense, defense, and special teams.
You have concerns over a team that had at least 150 more passing yards than its opponent? No, I'm joking.
Jason, there was a point in that game where I'm like, that game was so awful
It was
offensively
bad.
from both sides. I was in a chat with some buddies and I said, the only thing that this game is missing is for the Jets to take a lead on a safety. And sure enough, the Jets took an 11-10 lead on a safety on a holding call
On
in
the
the end
whole,
zone.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to put my survivor life on the line with Bo Nix against this Giants defensive line.
yeah. I shared this in our Discord earlier this week. The Jets are the first team. So they had negative passing yards once you take off the sacks, the 9 sacks, and under 100 total yards. So the last team to have negative passing yards and under 100 total yards, I think it's been almost 20 years. But the last time it's happened, not in December. So last time it's happened where weather probably wasn't a huge factor was 1982 with the New England Patriots. And so like a strike year that nobody remembers, but an awful performance from the Jets to let the Broncos off the hook. Because quite frankly, they were vulnerable. So yeah, I have those concerns too. Here's what and the Giants look good, right? They certainly have all the vibes. And I think that's why you're going to get a little popularity discount. My argument would be at least you're getting the popularity discount. So yeah, you're going to need Denver to play a little better. You're going to need and you're going against a dog that's a little more live than we thought a few weeks ago. But they're still a 6.5 point favorite. They're still at home. They're still the better team, I think, even with all that stuff. They still have that defense. And so you're kind of leaning into that and saying at low ownership, because I think realistically, Denver's schedule gets really tough. Other than this one and the week,
there's one spot.
week 10,
there's one spot week 10 against the
Raiders.
Raiders, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably going to be a decent value play, but also more popular, like probably like 25%-ish.
Yeah.
I'm trying. And so this is your more contrarian spot to get in if you don't want to pick the Chiefs or the Patriots, I think, is kind of how you're thinking about it. Green Bay, same thing. I think if you stayed off Green Bay last week, you're looking at week 9, but that's a more popular spot. This is a more contrarian spot. And it's also the highest EV play on the board, I think, of the week. And so, yeah, you're giving up future value, but you're playing against more popular teams. So they're in play. And I would give one more case for saving New England. I know we have these future value numbers, but if I pull up the season view, New England has Cleveland, the Jets. A lot of New England's value is as that like second or third option in a lot of weeks coming up. And so I think it's fine to hold New England. I think they're going to give you spots to pick them. I think you're going to pick them in Survivor, and I think you're going to have plenty of chances to do so. Anyway, that's my thought on those teams.
Yeah. What about the Packers this week?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. You're probably a low ownership, right? They lost on the road at Cleveland. They gave up 40 points at Dallas. They, quite frankly, didn't put the Bengals away. I think they haven't, ever since that first couple games, they haven't really lived up to what we think they're capable of, I don't think. This Arizona team actually probably better on offense with Kyler Murray out, passing the ball. But I do think Green Bay is the better team here against Arizona. And again, the reason you make the play is you're trying to get value at low ownership with the team that is still a pretty good favorite.
Yeah, I was kind of looking under the hood a little bit at both the Packers game off the bye against the Bengals and also Jacoby Brissett against the Colts. And you're right, Brissett performed well in that game. The eye test told me that, just watching a lot of that game, then going checking under the hood. It was pretty much above average across the board. High series conversion rate, EPA was decent. And then I'm looking at Jordan Love. They did what they were supposed to do offensively. 0.35 EPA per play for Jordan Love, which was really good despite a high ADOT. It's just the defense wasn't great. Like Joe Flacco is in the green here in terms of his EPA against that Packers defense. So I don't know what's going on with that defense, for all the hype they had coming in. And I think I'm a little nervous about Jordan Love just with his whole career sample size being a little inconsistent week to week. Lots of high ADOT stuff where if it doesn't happen in a given week when you're that high of an ADOT, then it can come crashing down pretty quick and you lose a game you're not supposed to lose. So it makes me a little uncomfortable. I do like the game theory aspect of it because they will be far less used in that Carolina game in 2 weeks. They still have the Giants on the schedule. The Bears may not be the worst spot. We'll see. I wasn't impressed with the Bears. We'll talk about them in a minute here. But yeah, at this point, Jason, in the show, I got to be honest with you. I'm not feeling great about picking a non-Chiefs team so far. So,
yeah, I think that's where we are. Is there's arguments for all these teams, but there's certainly arguments against. It's not. I think last week gave you more options to stay off the Packers that you felt comfortable with. Whereas, like Pittsburgh on Thursday night, I think it's a great spot to try to get Pittsburgh through. Mm-hmm. Again, from a game theory, this team feels like they've overachieved.
That's the next tier, right?
Huh?
Let's talk about that. That's the next tier. Yep. They're that tier of like Steelers -5.5 on TNF against the Bengals, Bears -5.5 against the Saints, Lions have moved to -5 against the Bucks. Is this where you're living? Because I think you do make some good points about the Steelers. Now, my last pool, I just used the Steelers last week and stuck them through. Now I'm kind of wishing I had them for this week, but I think there's some points here to be made about the Steelers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Steelers are in play. The future values, again, if you look at our future value numbers over there on the right, I know those may not mean much in a vacuum, but I think the key thing here is there's not that much difference between a lot of those numbers anymore. Pittsburgh has a low number, but nobody's really high. The Chiefs, because of their schedule, that number's not super huge.
Green Bay, were weeks previously where you had like 4s on this chart, which would be double the future value of the teams we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and some of those go away because those teams play games, and so those games come off the ledger. But also, we've seen the top of the league not really separate yet.
Yeah,
and so I think Pittsburgh's in play. They feel like they've overachieved. The Bengals feel like they have significantly just fallen apart, and so I'm a little scared of what happens in that game if the Bengals actually somehow find something. With Flacco now getting a full week of practice, but Pittsburgh's very much, I think, a solid pick. I'm probably saving Detroit. I think they're going to be better spots for them. Or I'm probably
100% agree on that, Jason. I just want to make that point that until the Lions get these DBs back and these cornerbacks back, then this is, to me, looking at the Lions in the way that a lot of us looked at them in the last month of the season into the playoffs last year, where they're going to have to score a lot of points potentially any given week to overcompensate for a completely depleted pass defense. So I'm with you on that. I do not want to go against Baker Mayfield with this bad of a banged up secondary with the Lions for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, I think Seattle, there's an argument there, but again, I think they have some spots where I may want to prefer them. Like, week 10 is probably a spot. If I've used Denver, I think you can use Denver now, Seattle week 10. I'd probably rather go that way. Chicago, our models are down on them. How do you want to treat that? Semi-popular, but they are that team that I think saves the most future value of the options. I don't think they have a lot of great spots where I don't think I'm going to be comfortable picking the Bears wherever I pick them. And so do I want to sprinkle them somewhere? It's in discussion. And then you get down to the Browns. I mean, so the Browns, is there an argument?
Go ahead.
To pick the Browns against the Dolphins' dysfunctional team in Cleveland? I mean, that's the kind of pick that you got to hold your nose. If you're in a strike pool, if you're in a rebuy pool, I think it's in play.
I was wondering if you're going to bring them up. And this is the game where if we get a true bad Cleveland weather game, then I'm going to be more likely to agree with you. And we don't know that at this point, but the early forecast is for some potentially winds sustained around 20 miles per hour. It's 50-50 right now, whether we get some rain as well. If this Dolphins offense that has no explosiveness, that has moved the ball to their defense, 6 yards per play against the Chargers. They did good as well the week before in their first game without Tyreek, but this is the Browns defense at home where the splits are just far better than they are when they're away from Cleveland. If you throw weather into this mix as well, listen, I'm never betting the Browns as a 3-point favorite, but as a survivor, contrarian play, I would consider that, especially when you look at the other teams on the board here. You know, the Rams aren't going to have Puka and they're playing in London. The Chargers offensive line is a mess right now. I just want to see them get healthy on the offensive line before I do anything with them. Seattle, I agree with you with the future value. I actually think I'd take Seattle over Cleveland if we don't get that weather, but we won't know that till Sunday, just because I think the offensive line for Houston is bottom 3 in the league, maybe the worst, and that Seattle has done a really good job of getting pressure without blitzing. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I think out of this tier, out of the top 4 favorites, it's probably Pittsburgh for me first. The Bears scare the heck out of me, man. They have now become the way I view the Jaguars at this point, where they are feasting on turnovers to overcompensate for a mediocre at best quarterback. They got turnovers again against the Commanders on Monday Night Football. If you look at the offensive metrics, the Bears by EPA and success rate are basically in that tier with the Saints. And if you look at quarterback only metrics, Spencer Rattler's actually having a better year than Caleb Williams by EPA and CPOE composite score. So I don't care that they're a 5-point favorite. I'm actually been waiting to see if a 6 appears and bet the Saints +6. And I think they are very much on upset alert any given week, given the level of play we've seen from Caleb Williams. You saw the analysis as well from Troy Aikman in the broadcast saying there's no reason to throw these deep balls to double coverage, take something underneath. He's just not seeing the field. He's just not seeing it as much as Ben Johnson schemes it up. And sure enough, the script runs out. They get off to a good start in that game. They have an early lead, but the Ben Johnson script runs out and the offense just goes completely into neutral and can't do much the rest of the game. So yeah, I'm out on the Bears. I'm good this week from a survivor perspective.
Well, I think that's interesting because I do think you want to identify which teams am I playing against, right? Doesn't mean you pick your opponent, by the way. We want to clarify that. Doesn't mean you pick the Saints. But which teams do I want to set up so I benefit if they end up losing? And I think the Bears are one of those teams you could do that with, right? You could do that with any of the top.
I mean, if they're double digits, I would love to not pick the Bears, especially with your projections of them being 12% owned this week.
Yeah, I think they're going to be somewhere in that. I think the question is, and because Pittsburgh was used a little more last week, I think you could see Pittsburgh tighten that up, but I also could see, I mean, the Bears are pretty much available to everybody, right? And so I think that's part of it. But yeah, the Cleveland thing, the weather, I do think that if we get bad weather, I worry about Mike McDaniel's calves. I think they're going to get exposed to the elements. He's going to have to wear longer pants, and that's going to be an issue, and he won't be able to adjust. So, yeah, I think that's a good breakdown of the slate. I do think there's lots of options, and we can get to. You ready to get to our top 3? Are we ready to go there?
I think so. Just one parting shot here on, Washington's a less than a field goal favorite at Dallas. Dallas's defense is terrible. The 49ers are getting bet early in the week. Actually, I take that back. They were bet before the game last night, and now the Falcons are getting bet against the Niners on the road.
I guess there's one other one down there. There's one other one you probably aren't picking many other times.
Is it the Panthers?
Yeah. Do you really want to lay it with the Panthers on the road as a 2-point favorite in Survivor? I don't know. I think
multi-entries, I could see it. Put one on there. I have concerns that they've looked awful on the road. Like, these wins have been at home against bad teams, so I have concerns there. But I certainly see your point about highlighting them. Would you do it? Never a good sign, Jason, when the first response is a big exhale.
Well, so I have rebuy that I can still rebuy for a couple more weeks.
Okay, rebuy. Yep.
I will probably put one of those on Chicago because why not, right?
Okay. Okay.
What will I do with the other one? Will I put it on? I mean, Pittsburgh, I think, has some value in a few weeks. So do I want to like spend a rebuy pick on Pittsburgh when I still have them on one entry? So I think it's either Cleveland or Carolina with the other one. Honestly, one of them, and just be willing to rebuy rather than use the Chiefs or use Denver, or use New England, a team I think, like as I pointed out, I think New England has sneaky, really strong value as a versatile piece over the next month and a half.
Completely agree. And one of the biggest things that have shocked me so far this year is that the Panthers defense is number 3 in the league in success rate allowed. So on a down-to-down basis, only the Broncos have a better defense than them from a success rate perspective. And the Jets, believe it or not, that shocked me too. So Jets defense has just had a lot of turnover variance. I want to make sure I'm saying this right because the Jets actually shocks me more than the Panthers do. Yeah, I mean, 2025 season, everything's highlighted here in the Ben Baldwin RBSDM database. Click on defense and Broncos, Jets, Panthers in terms of success rate allowed. So, Panthers have a good defense, man. I'll say that. So you should get a low scoring game if they're playing each other there. That's for sure. So it's an interesting contrarian play. Let's get to
Will
our
we
top
get
3.
Justin Fields real quick? Will we get
Yeah,
Justin Fields benched in that game? Do you think before we go on? Like,
in
is
the
that
middle of the game. I don't think so. I mean, Aaron Glenn's still a first-year head coach. If it's Tyrod Taylor, last time he played, his noodle arm gave up a pick 6 because he couldn't put enough velocity on the ball. You know, if it was like a younger quarterback with some upside, I'd say maybe. But like Tyrod Taylor's very close to retirement at this point, in my opinion. Like, this is not the Tyrod Taylor from 4 years ago. So I don't if they're down 28 points early, then sure. But I don't think I think this is Justin Fields for as long as they can. And if they have a terrible record, then they might get a better quarterback. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. But let's go to our top 3 picks here for NFL survivor pools in week number 7. Jason, I give you the floor here and let's go whatever direction you want to take here, whatever context of pool you want to talk about. Give us your top 3 for week 7.
Okay, I'm going to give him an order of how I'm likely to pick them across all my entries. I'm likely to have at least tied for or the most entries on Denver because I do have them available in well over 2/3 of my entries because I did save them probably more than the public did in week 1. And to me, there's only a few spots, so I'm using them here in this spot on some of those entries. For me, it's entry specific. Like if I don't have Buffalo and Seattle available, I'm probably less likely to use them because I then want to have them for week 10. But if I have one of those 2 available on this entry, on each entry, I'm considering Denver as my top play. Because if you look at week 10, why I say that, week 10 is a tough week. Denver, Buffalo, and Seattle are our 3 projected top favorites, and it drops pretty quickly. So I want to have one of those 3 to get me through that week. So I'm willing to use Denver as long as I have somebody else for that week. Kansas City's number 2. And that's because I'm going to use them on small pools, late start pools where I let's say only have 13 picks to go. Let's say a single pick late start where I don't have to dig as deep. I'm willing to use the Chiefs now to push me through. And so I'm willing to use Kansas City more in those pools. So I'll probably have a fair amount. Will I have 40% of my entries on them? Probably not. But might it be 25 to 30? Yes, it might. Because I think it's a good spot to get you through because of what we talked about. I think there's question marks and everybody else. Number 3, I think there's a 2-way tie for me here, or 3. It's probably Pittsburgh, but I can make an argument for Green Bay. Green Bay and maybe some larger pools where I want to be really contrarian. But it's also probably Pittsburgh on average. And so I could see using both of those. So I'll say Pittsburgh slightly over Green Bay in the 3rd spot.
All right, so my top three at the end of these shows each week have always crossed out the most popular team. And this week, that is clearly the Kansas City Chiefs. But for the first time this year, I am considering going away from that and choosing the Chiefs because I don't see a lot of other spots where, it's like this week where it's harder to find a clear number two that you have a lot of confidence in. um, every other week where I might use the Chiefs, there's a couple other teams that I feel decent about for that week, or it's like the last 3 weeks of the season. I'm in the end game at that point, and you know, just getting to that point is a real accomplishment, and we take it as we can at that point. So, um, for me, I might use the Chiefs this week. If I do, I will have full transparency with everybody on my last Survivor entry for $1 million. I'll put it in the comments and fully admit if I ate 40% chalk on the Kansas City Chiefs in week 7. So for this top three, though, we're going to leave them out because they are over 40% projected popularity. I'll go with the Packers as my number one for this week. And the biggest reason is the next spot where I would potentially use them is also a spot where I think they'll be the most popular pick for that week 9 against Carolina. So I think this is a good spot to get them at lower ownership. So I will go with the Packers at number one. My next pick will actually be the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, a couple of reasons why. Number one, the Steelers defense got healthy off the bye, and they looked awesome off of the bye week last week against another bad division opponent. So I like that. I also like that if you look at these teams' efficiency on offense by scripted plays, like getting off the good starts in these games, Art Smith actually is top 2 in the league in EPA on scripted plays with Aaron Rodgers to start this year. And the Bengals are like second to last. So I think there's a really good chance the Steelers get off to a good start in this game and hold on the rest of the way. Flacco was fine, but I just don't see much upside here with Flacco in this offense because the offensive line is still terrible. The defense is still terrible. Like, what's the path for Flacco here? Like, he has to score 24, 27 points. I just don't see it. So I'll go Steelers number 2 here. And then number 3 for me, I don't like the Broncos with Bo Nix right now. I'd rather wait for a few weeks to see if they figure it out for that spot week 10 against the Raiders. The Patriots and the dead cat bounce angle with Brian Callahan out of the mix. There's too much data for me to ignore there to include them in my top 3. The Lions and their banged up secondary against Baker Mayfield. No, thank you. Don't like the Bears as well. So we're going this is a deep cut here for number 3. I think it's the Seattle Seahawks at home against the Houston Texans. And I love that matchup in the trenches at home. Don't care the Texans are coming off a bye. Love that the market has actually bet the Seahawks from 2.5 on the look ahead to 3. And now we're off the key number of 3.5 in a couple of spots. So I think there's support here for Seattle to get this done against a very bad offensive line in the Houston Texans. So that's my top 3: Packers, Steelers, Seahawks. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Again, if you find it useful, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments who you are picking this week. And maybe if you're not picking the Chiefs, why you're saving them, what spot you're looking to use them down the road. And as well, just want to let you know, hit that 3-day trial down in the description if you haven't claimed it already. We show you a lot of the kind of big picture stuff in this video, but the best part about being a Pool Genius subscriber is the customization ability for all the pool entries that you have left. If you've made it this far, we're getting closer to the end game where now real money is on the table for you to win. It is worth the investment to get these tools with Pool Genius. I say that not just as somebody who hosts the show and works for Pool Genius now, but because I use the tools myself before I worked for Pool Genius and took down a $10,000 pool with more than 5,000 entries in it. I've gotten deeper into Survivor pools than I've ever had before I had the Pool Genius subscription. So it is worth it. Take it from me. Just a personal recommendation. I would not be doing these shows if I did not believe in the product and the work that Jason and his team is putting in. So again, Thank you for watching. For Jason, I'm Steven. Best of luck in your NFL Week 7 Survivor pools.